Joining me down the line is Alexander Downer, former Foreign Affairs Minister for Australia, High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, and, importantly, a man who's been advising the UK government on immigration. Alexander, welcome again to the programme. Normally, you and I discuss the small boats problem and how Australia dealt with it a decade ago. But now we're talking about legal migration. These figures are due out on the 25th of this month. Some think they could be as high as a net figure of 1 million in the last year. And yet you seem to think that Suella's now saying the right thing.
Well, I think she's saying the right thing, but I think there is a fundamental flaw in the UK's immigration policy, which has been a flaw for many years, and that is that there is no cap on the number of migrants taken. Yep. There should be a cap. I mean, it seems to me so obvious. There should be a cap on the number of skilled migrants, and then within that cap, work out what sort of skills you want to bring in. There should be a cap on the number of family reunions. That's typically people marrying Brits, but also other family reunions. And there should be provision for taking some refugees, and that should be capped as well. But look, honestly, if you don't have a cap on the immigration policy, then this is just going to go on indefinitely. I mean, 700,000, 1 million, when they were going to keep the figure below 100,000. Set the figure at 100,000 or 99,000. Set it at that and keep it at that. That's what they should do.
Now, the Australian-style point system, when we heard that, and it was a phrase that I used in the run-up to the referendum, and then the Conservative Party adopted it, Australia says, right, you've got this skill, we need a certain number of people with that skill, but you go to Australia, you're paying your own health insurance, aren't you, for the first 4 years? You've got to show you've got the physical means to support yourself, to come in. Why? And you've worked with these ministers. Why does nobody here dare propose anything like that?
So I think the issue, when I've asked ministers about this, and it's worth asking them, the issue seems to be the demand from the economic departments, particularly the Treasury, but also BEIS, or whatever BEIS is now called, the business department, that migration be maximised in order to maximise economic growth, because they see big migration numbers, those departments see big migration numbers as a positive for economic growth. They show up positively in the figures. But, of course, they may not show up very positively in the per capita GDP figures, just in the absolute GDP figures. And the secret to improving economic growth is enhancing productivity. If you're just going to bring in cheap labour from all over the world, then people are going to employ cheap labour rather than employ methods of improving productivity. No, but I mean, where I differ from the general debate in the UK is that I think unless you have a debate about capping the different categories of immigration, then you're just going to be, to use a phrase, at sea on this issue, and the government will never get a grip on it.
No, you make that point very, very firmly and very, very well. But do you think there is actually genuine, serious intent with this government to reduce numbers? Or do they see no political challenge because Labour's not going to threaten them on this issue? Is this just something where they give the odd speech? Priti Patel did it, Suella Braverman's doing it. They'll make some promises at the next election that they won't really mean. Do they just think they can just get away with this with no political cost?
So I think Priti Patel and Suella Braverman are completely sincere in what they say. I don't have any doubt about that. But I think the thing to take into account is the resistance that they as Home Secretaries have had. I don't mean from the Home Office, but from the economic departments. I think there has been substantial resistance from them. And so within the government, certainly within the civil service, there is a lot of division over this issue. So ultimately, these divisions have to be resolved by the Prime Minister. And the simple thing for the Prime Minister to do here is to maintain his current policy with one change, and that is to impose caps on the number of different categories of migrants that he agrees to being brought into the UK. But, you know, if they don't do that, I don't know who you vote for otherwise, because the Liberal Democrats and the Labor Party believe in free migration. So they don't believe in limiting migration at all. So you're going to end up with still more pressure on education, on the National Health Service, and so the list goes on. And above all, housing prices and rental prices.
Yep.
If you don't do something about putting a cap on immigration.